Hello, everybody, and welcome back to One Hub Racing. We are here on another Sunday evening for the Late Night Talk Show, episode 19, and we are here to discuss round 19 in Mexico, where it all went down, and another championship was decided, one more to be decided in the final two rounds. Alongside me in the talk show here tonight is, of course, Jono. How are you doing tonight, Jono?
Not too bad, thanks, Nick. Internet died on me a few minutes ago, but I'm back, and back for episode 19. Can't believe it. We've made it to Mexico, so not long to go now. It's been a heck of a season, and we had some decent races again, didn't we, this week?
Yeah, we definitely did. Was going to start with the Prestige race this week because we were both particularly impressed with the driving standards in the Prestige this week. I thought, Jono, when I watched the race myself, everyone was too quick for me, but excellent in their battling wheel to wheel. I thought everyone left each other just enough room, and just went. I felt it was quite a respectful race and quite exciting in the sense that you didn't know if the championship was going to be won or not right until MLA crossed the line.
Yeah, definitely. And MLA just literally squeaked that at the end. It literally came down to the final couple of corners, didn't he, as to whether he was going to do it or not. Happily for him, he managed to make it work even without his teammate racing, didn't he?
Yeah, and his teammate actually, the reason he didn't race is he actually just fell asleep, and
Wow,
didn't wake up. So
that
he left
reminds me of
MLA.
you back in the day, mate.
I know, I always used to fall asleep before practice, didn't I? Left MLA to soak up all that pressure, and you have to say he definitely was pushing to try and get that championship done and dusted.
Yeah, it was, and I think he was pretty pleased with the result afterwards, wasn't he? He's up and down season, so I think he was really pleased to get the job done there. Without his teammate there, obviously it all landed at his feet, didn't it, to get it done in Mexico? And he did just enough, didn't he? He got it done right on the line there and kept his nerve till the end.
Yeah, 4 attempts, he won the championship by. Of course, with 2 rounds to go, it was kind of inevitable, but you never know with these things. It's always a big relief, as myself, and Jono, when it's just finally done and dusted, then you can just enjoy the last couple of races.
Yeah, absolutely. You work hard for it all season, don't you? And you just never know what's going to happen in racing, do you? Everyone's always telling you, "Oh, it's done, it's over," but until it's over, when you're in those shoes, you can't relax. So now they can, and for the final couple of races, they can just enjoy their racing.
Yeah, definitely. Of course, Emily retiring at the end of the season as well from league racing, so he'll want to finish on a high. But the constructors is definitely a nice accolade to have. Alrighty, so qualifying was intermediate weather conditions. Blizzard, a couple temps he got pole position by, but overall another close gap there in qualifying as we went down the order. As the race went on, it was quite interesting because of that. A lot of the drivers, doing the one stop. Malloy was the only driver to start on the Hypersoft tires, and you would say that anyone on the supers were going to one stop this race. Into turn one, though, we see that Squeezy had a spin round, and this is it didn't look like particularly anyone did anything wrong. It was just one of those things where too many cars got too close on track, spun round. But what a great recovery to I believe he crossed the line second in the end.
Yeah, yeah, it was a really good recovery drive. Obviously, real shame. I've just watched it again now. He gets spun round there, ends up spinning round, and he'd have been absolutely gutted at the time, wouldn't he? It's always a bit scary at this track going through those open few corners. And unfortunately for him, obviously, he came off worse, didn't he? And instantly found himself at the back of the field. But it was a really, really good recovery drive. Got his head down and made the strategy work well as well. And I think he'd have absolutely bit your hand off for that result after the spin come the end of the race.
Sorry, my apologies. Third is where Squeezy finished. On the podium, though, Rafa finished in second. He had a good, clean race, and from fifth on the grid to second, and to finish under 5 seconds from VSR Blizzard, you have to say Rafa, obviously one of our esports drivers, perhaps his best result of the season in terms of not just the result, but just his race pace.
Yeah, absolutely. It was really good race pace, and I saw on Twitter after the race he was really pleased with the result as well. And as you say, maybe his best drive, most complete drive of the season, certainly for quite a while. And so, yeah, signs are good for him, aren't they? That he's managed to pull that one together and make his way forward. And as you say, finish not far behind Blizzard come the end.
Yeah, MLA, as we mentioned, taking fourth and taking the Constructors' Championship, so well done to him and Mercedes. Jesse in the top 5 again, so he continues his good form in the second half of the season. Malloy, you have to say that was probably one of his best races of the season, and although he two-stopped it, looked like he had some fun out there and had some decent pace around this track, which is good to see. This is Wayne, finished in 7th, Scott Feeder 8th, SOR Lakitu, who really didn't want the wet weather conditions, felt he could have had a much better result in the dry. On Twitter he mentioned that. James Slater in the points again, and then we have our DNFs outside of the points. Marquez, as we know, as Odems decided to absolutely destroy his Red Bull car, which as we know, Jono will probably get him a penalty for next race, and we were hoping that we wouldn't see him in the steward's office this season.
Yeah, definitely. Already spoken to Adams about it, and I think he's already said basically bring on the penalty. He knows what's coming, doesn't he? And yeah, real shame. I actually thought he was going to get to the end of the season with no penalties, but unfortunately, obviously frustration got the better of him or whatever this time out. And yeah, he binned his Red Bull into the wall deliberately, didn't he? So I think we'll see him starting at the back next time out. So yeah, it'd be difficult to get a win, I think, certainly next time from the back of the grid, but I guess stranger things have happened. But yeah, a bit of a shame for him to get this far, this near the end of the season. Known for his crash in previous seasons, all been good until now, but unfortunately didn't quite make it over the line there.
All right, on to the pinnacle tier, and this is where all the chaos happens. It's such a shame because this tier always puts on such entertaining races, but that final cutting edge when it comes to side by side, they just can't seem to get it right. And it just causes spins and incidents, and other people get caught up in it. And overall, it was a disappointing race from that point of view. I know you and Kieran obviously had a lot to commentate on. But, some of the moves were questionable. Off the start, though, where does Lawrence come from? 4th on the grid. It looked like Sam was going to get into the lead. He got a brilliant start. But I spoke to Sam earlier tonight, and he thought maybe he got ahead of him too soon. So he almost had too good of a start so that he didn't get enough slipstream and enough momentum into turn 1. Lawrence on the inside goes down. Do you think that was the case? As they all go deep and then kind of swerve round, and it was quite a clean first lap, particularly for the pinnacle tier. Only one bit of wing I saw fly off. The rest was pretty good. I was quite impressed.
Yeah, it was. It was all perfectly clean in the turn 1. I think the little bit of wing damage came a little bit later, but Lawrence he got a good launch, didn't he? But as you say, Sam was in the lead initially, but then I think you just get swallowed up by the cars behind. I think this track and pole position is not particularly important at all. Perhaps the second row is the best place to start if you get a decent launch. And Lawrence was able to get it on the inside and just get his braking perfect as well. It was always a risk you're going to spear into people if you get it wrong. And obviously they were all on the limit, but he got the braking absolutely perfect, did Lawrence, and came out of that section in the lead. But, unfortunately for him, it didn't last long, did it?
Yeah, what do you think that comes down to? Do you think that comes down to the setup or just not doing enough practice, to know what the car is going to feel like in the race, particularly at the start of the race through that twisty section, high speed as well. So as we saw, if you do have an incident, it can all come ending pretty quickly after that.
Yeah, the fuel load certainly makes a big difference, doesn't it, coming from qualifying? And perhaps he was surprised himself as well that he had actually made it into P1. And I think he mentioned in the chat that he was just sort of so excited and that he'd made it into the lead of the race, that perhaps his concentration just wasn't quite there. And then combined with the heavy fuel load through that high-speed section, he just seemed to lose it, didn't he? And unfortunately, the walls lined the circuit there, and the Force India didn't bounce, and he was out of the race just half a lap in. So a real shame for Lawrence, but I guess they say it's always next week.
Yeah, Kian was doing good on only his second race since returning to the league. Unfortunately, he had a moment through the middle sector and then a couple more incidents further on in the race. But the battle took turns to more a case of get up the front, have a spin with someone, and then take your turns to recover. And there were quite a few incidents, where cars just perhaps not giving each other that little bit of extra room. And Jono, I think maybe some of these guys in this tier need reminding that these are Formula One cars. They're so delicate, and the smallest of contacts can obviously cause a lot of damage. As we saw, with Vettel in real life, it seemed to those sort of spins seem to happen with a lot of the cars in this race.
Yeah, they do. We want to see close racing, but at the same time, there's close and there's just having constant contact and leaving no space, and just driving like it's the last lap of the race, all race long from some of these drivers, and just not giving an inch. And yeah, it's sort of frustrating from a student point of view to see it, because obviously all the drivers know what can happen, but they still seem to carry on with it race after race, driving it like a go-kart rather than an F1 car. And unfortunately, as you say, yeah, you can't really have contact in an F1 car and get away with it so often. So it's frustrating. It's frustrating for the drivers, surely, as well, because they're all just getting caught up in these little incidents, little spins, losing 10 seconds here and there. Makes a massive difference come the end. So yeah, we've been sort of battling it all season, haven't we? And at times we seem to have got on top of it, and then yeah, next race comes along, and they all seem to go hell for leather again. So yeah, it was a bit of a shame to see. It was it was an exciting race to commentate on, but yeah, from a clean racing point of view, it obviously wasn't great.
Mark just mentioning in the chat that it felt like everyone was driving with anger. And I think that's a really good way to put it. That's exactly what it looked like, with such a long straight and so many opportunities. 36 laps to overtake. Some of these guys perhaps should have just tucked back in and go, I'll try it next lap. But no, they wanted to give it a go. One thing I wanted to ask your opinion of, Jono, is you mentioned not giving inches. You just said 29 minutes and 20 seconds on the stream. There's this battle between Jor and Brumadinho. Brumadinho gives him room. Jor gets the switch back, and then Jor just runs right to the edge of the curb with all four wheels on the exit.
Yeah.
And you can see right at the last point before it switches camera angles, Jor's almost all four wheels onto the curb, which definitely indicates that you're not carrying a lot of speed on the exit that corner, so you take that line deliberately, in my opinion.
Yeah, you have to say I've just watched it again now, and I've watched it earlier, and it actually looks like he almost opens the steering, doesn't it? Could definitely have taken a tighter line and still held the position, and there's just no need for it at all. There's just no need to squeeze drivers like that, because next time it'll be the other way round. And Joel will be
it creates bad relationships, doesn't it, between drivers?
It does, and we see drivers racing for revenge as well. I think quite often, they feel they're hard done by, so they'll just come storming back and go for any sort of move in retaliation. And you just can't retaliate in F1, because then you'll be the one getting penalised as well. You've just got to deal with it if you feel you've been hard done by, and let the stewards deal with it if you want to take it to the steward's office, and just race your race. There's no point retaliating and coming back with stupid dive bombs or something afterwards.
Yeah, if you head to the other one I asked you, is 4840 on the stream, and you're going to see a battle here between Jor and CSS, and Jor obviously after I think it was where CSS went down the inside really late. There was contact. Didn't kind of push Jor out wide, which he did to Brumadinho earlier on the race that we were just mentioning. And then goes back down the inside, goes deep, and then runs CSS out wide. CSS just cuts the corner and just continues on, and it just baffles me how drivers think it's unacceptable to keep the position like that. If it was me, rather than even be getting investigated or worth getting investigated, I would just hand it back and try again, particularly with this long straight coming up, And as you can see, he did get a 5-second stop go for gaining a position, and then they have contact into turn one. That's just frustration from both of them, and it's just frustrating for yourself as a steward and for us as viewers.
Yeah, it's really frustrating. The return of position rule is so simple, isn't it? If you think you've been, responsible in any way for an incident or for cutting a corner illegally or whatever, just give up the time, just return the position, and there'll be no further action, most of the time. But, it was a blatant cut, wasn't it, from CSS? He tried to hold it around the outside. He was always going to run out of road, so decided I'll just cut the corner there, get the position back and carry on. And, I remember watching it on the stream at the time, and I think it might have been Kieran who just said, surely he's going to have to return the position there. But he didn't, and he's likely to end up in the steward's office because of it now.
As the race finished, Donkor recovered to take the lead. Mali recovered to second. Scorpion jumped up to third after West on the penultimate corner had that incident. And just heartbreaking. It would have been his podium, and he definitely earned it. You would have to say, out the drivers, he was, one of the... I felt I didn't really see him involved in too much. So disappointing for him. White Fountain, though, recovered to fourth, so well done to him. I'm West fifth. Matt sixth. He had a bit of a scrappy race with a couple of incidents that he was on the receiving end of. Sam in seventh, not the best race for the champ. Lukey in eighth. Kian in ninth. CSS scored the final points, but with a massive, I think that says 31 penalties. So you really need to, if you're getting that many penalties, have a look at your driving. All right, let's move on to the podium tier. And as you mentioned, Jono, before we went on air, it wasn't the most exciting race of the season. Danestar took pole ahead of CXY, Jonas in third, and it was all about could those Ferraris with Gazanot Racing close that gap on Red Bull. And it was key for them. Jonas had a poor start, fell down the order straight away, so it was going to be recovery for him. And then it became this race-long battle between CXY and Danestar, which I quite enjoy because I feel like they're really... It's not that often that you find two drivers so evenly matched. And it was a good battle that, CXY came out on top eventually. But, just seeing Jonas at the start there, he spun round. Luckily, no damage to his Ferrari. This battle continued. One thing I wanted to talk to you about is this, when they were battling, is the weaving on the straight. It's difficult to say weaving because when you think of weaving, you think of fast left and right movements. This was more like a glide left, glide right. What's your opinion on it, Jono, in terms of down the long straight? It's one of those borderline. It's really hard, isn't it?
It's always a tricky one. We know you can't make multiple moves in the braking zone, and we don't want to see dangerous weaving either. But obviously, CXY was doing it there to try and break slipstream, and it is classed as multiple movements. But then you can also argue that Danestar's quite a long way back, and he's not really being put in any sort of danger in any way from CXY doing that. And with the DRS and the slipstream being so powerful, it's you're sort of desperate to try and find some sort of way to maintain that lead and not just get passed straight back. It's always a bit of a tricky one. I know it's not the first time it's come up this season as well, and the stewards may well have a look and decide one way or the other about it. But it's always an awkward one from CXY's point of view. He's trying to just move across and gradually across from side to side to break slipstream. But I guess from Danestar's point of view behind, you could think, that he's weaving there, and that's against the rules. There's always that bit of a grey area, isn't there, when you're doing the weaving, but from a reasonable distance ahead of the car behind.
And so obviously the Ferrari went on to win the race, but Koloman, a distance back in third, was able to score his first podium, so well done to him. Jorit recovered to fourth. Obviously he's no longer in the championship hunt. Neither Mercedes or himself are. Liam, let's head to the finishing results. Liam had a good battle with Boji early on in the race that I quite enjoyed. So Liam finished fourth. Jorit finished fifth after penalties. Jamie in sixth, another good result for Jamie. He's really starting to score those top eight consistently now. Jonas in seventh, so maybe a bit disappointed he wasn't able to take advantage of Gaza not being there tonight.
Yeah, definitely. Happy for Jamie, and obviously he was happy as well, wasn't he, with the sixth place? Not a great result, I guess, for Jonas. He started third on the grid, didn't he, and ended up down in seventh. So I'm sure he'd have hoped to get more out of the race, wouldn't he, than he got. But his points all the same, I guess. But with only 12, 13 starters, I guess he'd have been hoping to be towards the top end of the points rather than the lower end.
Shout out to Ols and Ols. I know Nick crashed late on, but they both had that spin. They both had to pit lap one, and they just carried on and had a good old scrap all the way through. I know, as I said, Nick retired towards the end, but it was right near the end. Up until then, it was a good scrap, and Ols back into the points. D-Boy Dan scored a point. White Eagle finished just outside, so he couldn't make it 2 weeks in a row. But overall, not the most entertaining race. As you said, we didn't get good numbers for many reasons on Friday in the podium tier. But nevertheless, 2 rounds to go, Brazil and Abu Dhabi. And we've got a special guest joining us tonight. Alan, those of you who raced with us on F1 2017 might have remembered that he commentated on both Season 10 and Season 11 top tier. So we're going to get him in the chat just to find out what he's been up to and ask a few questions about what's been happening this season, his opinion of it. So bear with me a sec, and I'll get him in now. Whilst we wait for Alan, Jono, Danestar wants our predictions for Brazil. Who do we think is going to take the win in each tier?
I think it'll be heavy rain in Danestar's tier for Brazil, so I think it'll be a tricky race for them. I'm going to make the prediction it'll be wet as well as my prediction for the win. But I think I'm going to say Danestar's going to win it. CXY got the better this week, didn't he? And they're just trading results, every race pretty much, and there's not a lot between them. So I'm going to go for him next time out. I think I'm going to go for Sam in the pinnacle because we've had Don Cool win this time, we had Reflow win last time out, and so the champion has surely got to get back on the top step of the podium before the end of the season. So I'm going to go for Sam, and I'm going to go for Julian in Prestige. He's going to come back and he's going to dominate and he's going to win it next time round.
Alrighty, I'm going to have to go for the podium tier. Let's go for... It's hard to bet against either CXY or Danestar, really, isn't it? They both have quite a margin over the rest of the field after the last couple races. So I'd say either of those two. I think you're right. We will see some rain in one of the tiers next week in Brazil. For Pinnacle, I'm going to go with, I think Matt might do quite well. We know he took the win in Italy, so he might be able to sneak another one before the end of the season. And in Prestige, I'm going to go for VSR Josh. So those are my predictions. Alan, welcome to the Late Night Talk Show. Good to have you back on a One Hub Racing stream. Just make sure your audio is set to be shared. How are you doing? How has your time away from the commentary box been?
It's been very interesting. I've tried to do other leagues as not commentating, but as in driving myself. I'm running CRC. It is a GT series. But other than that, I've been running in other leagues such as NASCAR leagues, GT leagues. I've tried to step away from F1 in a positive manner, and it's been fun. But other than that, I love the community, and it's great to be back. Awesome
stuff. And tell us, do you miss the commentary box at all? Do you miss commentating on those races like the Bisas and Louis when the safety car came in with 2 laps to go in Silverstone? Moments like that where you just don't know who's going to win, everything's riding, and just those classic races that you'll always remember. Do you miss commentating on those?
Well, I don't miss that race because that day I was really sick. But other than that, yeah, I miss races like that in general. Miss commentating those types of races. I actually did my first commentary gig a while ago. This is last week, and it was for an NASCAR league, and we did the Daytona 500. I commentated that, and it just felt so good to be back in the booth. But yeah, I definitely do miss it, and it's something that hopefully in the future I can return to.
Awesome. I presume you didn't get F1 2018. Is F1 2019 a game you plan to, even not if returned commentating, but is it a game you plan to get and race at all?
Oh yeah, for sure. I plan on getting 2019, and there's only a couple of reasons why. Giovinazzi's in the game, so that's one of them.
You're a big fan, aren't you?
That, yeah, I'm looking forward to 2019. But
awesome.
Yeah, 2019, I look forward to it.
Awesome stuff. And talk to us about your time commentating. Obviously, Bisas isn't racing at the moment. He's not happy with this game, and so he hasn't, put his focus onto it.
I don't blame him.
Yes, there are, as we know, a lot of issues with it, as per usual. Has to be said. But who would you say, out of all your time commentating on F1 games, was the driver you felt was the most complete and impressed you the most?
Impressed me as a driver?
Yeah.
Do you want it from overall league racing or just from F1 TS Hub?
No, overall.
Or one hub, I should say.
Don't worry.
I'll answer both. For one hub, I always saw that as Beast has. He was always the man to be. In league racing in general, there's this guy that is on Williams Esports. His name from PS4 is Carex. I want to get up his full name. Hold on a second. Let me do a quick type it in. His full name is Alvaro Carreton. He's Spanish. But yeah, when he joined AOR, he was really, really quick. And he just impressed me. And I say this to everyone because I have friends who aren't that fast at the F1 game. And they're like, Alan, out of all the time you've commentated, like, who's the fastest guy? And I always tell them it's that, Care. He's always impressed me. I mean, there's others like Valache Ali D, David Greco, Nervo Tank. They've all impressed me. But Kara stood out the most.
Awesome. And have you been following any of the races this season? And if so, has there been any moments that you've enjoyed, or have you caught any of the streams at all?
I will be completely honest. I have only watched partially one race. That's it. After I stepped away. Actually, no, I shouldn't say that. 2 races. I remember Soup was, I wouldn't say replacing me, but more of like, I remember him commentating one race. I watched that one on his like debut. And then recently, when you asked me to come back as like a host for this, I made sure that night I watched a race. Well, not the full race. I was busy. But yeah, I went back and watched part of the race, and I don't even know who won. But again, a lot of good racing. It was very competitive. Oh, and my phone is going off, as usual. Hold on a second.
That's okay. Obviously, Jono, you're going to be stepping away from the commentary box after this season and the stewarding as well. Is it obviously we haven't really announced it or talked about it too much. Do you think you're going to miss those classic races commentating?
Yeah, definitely. It's I've really enjoyed it, and even this season there's been some absolute classics. I've enjoyed all my time commentating, and it's been great alongside Kieran this season, of course. Commentating in quite a few different leagues and stuff, so I've learned a lot from him. And same with the student as well. I've enjoyed it over quite a few seasons now. I think I've been doing it, but I felt the time was right to step away, at least for a little while. Just struggling with the time commitments really at the moment. But I have enjoyed it, and I do plan to hopefully be back in some capacity, at least in the future.
Awesome stuff. Last question for you, Alan. In terms of as you've seen I'm sure you've seen on Twitter, we've announced the Champions Charity event. There'll be some drivers that from the One Hub racing community there. Unfortunately, Beasthouse won't be attending because it is his birthday on that day. But will you tune in and just give us your thoughts on that event?
Definitely look forward to it. I mean, I don't have many thoughts. Going into it, it's a race, and there's going to be a winner. That's the Kimi Räikkönen response. But overall, looking at it, I look forward to it. Have it marked on the calendar already, something I can look forward to. But yeah, just came up through my mind as you mentioned it, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's happening. But yeah, I definitely look forward to it.
Awesome stuff. Alrighty, well there you have it, myself and Jono for our 19th episode of the Late Night Talk Show. We've got 2 races left in Brazil and Abu Dhabi to close the season out for our 12th season, sorry. I'm already getting ahead of myself as there's plenty of plans going on for our 13th season, unlucky for some behind the scenes. But Alan, thank you for joining us in the commentary box once again, and hopefully we will have you here in the future, whether it be driving or in the commentary box. It'll be good to see you part of One Hub Racing. Jono, thank you again for joining me, and thank you everyone for watching. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, and of course you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook at One Hub Racing. Have a good night.